What do most Fortune 500 executives have in common? They learned important lessons on the fields and courts of their high school and collegiate sports teams. This is true for both men and women. Ernst & Young found that a whopping 94% of women holding a C-suite position played sports. Their wins and losses shaped their habits and who they would become. Join me on my journey to sit with some of the brightest executives in the world as we discuss how sports shape their professional trajectory. In partnership with Chief Executive Magazine, the voice of America's CEO community, I'm your host, Don Yeager, and this is Corporate Competitor Podcast. With me for today's episode is Brandon Steiner. Brandon is the founder of Steiner Sports Marketing and Memorabilia, the largest company of its kind in America. He has partnered with Notre Dame football, Syracuse, Madison Square Garden, and the New York Yankees, which led to purchasing the exclusive rights to the old Yankee Stadium. His stadium product line made him well known for turning dirt into dollars. He has been invited to speak about these marketing strategies at the top business schools in the country, including Harvard, Northwestern, Columbia, and Yale. And today, we are bringing his wisdom to you.
Consistency over time equals credibility. Anybody can be great on any given day. I've seen more players have had one great season or a great month or a great game. But when I hear people say, oh, I've got a big meeting. Oh, there's a big call. What are you saying about all the other calls? If that's a big game, what are you saying about all the other games? Consistency is certainly a very important characteristic if you're interested in being extraordinary. We're all ordinary. Question is, do you want the extraordinary? Which means you got to do the extra things consistently over time to be great.
Brandon, thanks so much for joining us.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me. And I love your set. It's a set right after my heart. I wish everybody had a set like that.
We have everything that Brandon Steiner would love.
Especially the Walter Payton brings a little bit warmth to my heart because I had that huge relationship with him right before he died. A lot of people don't realize, but he had a big part of my success as I was accelerating in the late 90s, early 2000s by letting me do his final collection before he passed. So he'd leave a legacy behind, which is amazing because he never liked signing autographs, particularly for money, except to this point. Crazy. I'd see that photo on the back. It's like, boom.
Well, you know that the reason I know so much about you is that I lived with Walter for those last 10 weeks of his life to write his autobiography.
Yeah, I'm in that book.
That's right. All that you did with Walter, I heard from him and chronicled, and I loved. Again, he wasn't looking for most of his life to even ever think about that.
Special man, no question. We could spend an hour on Walter. A lot of lessons learned. You know, you don't get to be that great at anything you do unless there's a lot of great processes that go along with it and also a lot of great people that surround you.
Yeah. We just did a special edition with Jarrett and Brittany, his two children. We got a chance to reflect and talk back about lessons learned from Walter. But I want to talk to you about your journey. Talk to me about the phrase that your mom often used about your family's circumstances.
Well, I think how you're raised and where you've been raised has a huge impact on the trip you get on. My mother was a very interesting woman, single mom. I grew up in Kings Highway in Brooklyn in a really upper middle class neighborhood. We were extremely poor. My mother was never a soft shoulder to cry on. She always said, our circumstances suck. We're poor, but you're not poor. You're as rich as anybody that you know, and you have the ability to do anything you want to do. When I would come to her to complain about things that I may or may not have or wanted to have, she wasn't a soft shoulder. She was, well, then go out and do something. Let's go. So, you know, I come to her one time when I was trying to open up this paper route at the age of 12, and nobody was buying the paper. I couldn't open up any routes, and I was trying to win this contest. Whoever opened up the most accounts would win a box of candy bars. And sure enough, I go home and I'm like, Mom, we got to move out of this neighborhood. I went to this older woman, and even she wouldn't even buy the paper because she didn't want to tip me. My mother was like, sit down. You got to stop selling. You got to serve. You got to be a solution-based business person. So I went back to the older woman's apartment at 10 o'clock at night. Now, remember, this is 1973. Going to somebody's house at 10 o'clock at night. You kidding? My lady thought there was an emergency. And I said, ma'am, if there's a torrential downpour, heat wave, snowstorm, really bad weather, you shouldn't be out. I'll bring you a newspaper every day by 7:30 and milk and bagels on Wednesday and Sunday. Would you get the paper delivered then? I said, wow, that's so sweet. I said, I was thinking about you. What I didn't know is that the woman would turn me on to the entire neighborhood, all of our friends. I was delivering more milk and bagels than you can imagine.
Wow.
My mother sent me out, gave me no soft shoulder, go out and solve some problems. Don't come here crying because you're not going to win this box of candy bars. Are you really listening to your customers? Are you really trying to find the problem so you can come up with a solution, even if it has nothing to do with you? People love to keep people around them that can solve problems. The big question is like, how do you get in the mindset? The way to increase your entrepreneurial spirit, the way to increase your sales, and the way to grow is to grow your common sense, to have more empathy, have many employees that can't get out of their own head at 30 and 40. When I look back, I think, wow, as a 12-year-old, I was thinking like a 75-year-old woman in an apartment building, which is just really instinctively crazy. When you talk about common sense, it's about getting in the common person's emotion, getting in their mindset, getting in their thought process. So when I think about selling, even to this day or whatever I'm doing, I'm getting out of my head. I'm trying to put myself in the customer's shoes. I'm trying to put myself in the employee's shoes. If you want employees to be really happy employees, put yourself in their shoes. See what it's like to work for you and really be honest about it. That's been the basis of my entrepreneur spirit. People always say, can you teach entrepreneurism? Get out of your head, increase your common sense, increase your empathy, and start thinking and feeling what other people are thinking and feeling. And you'll see the problems for what they are. And then you'll be able to use your experience and knowledge to solve them.
So, what's keeping us from doing that? What is the barrier that is keeping folks from being able to do that? It sounds so simple. And if it were simple, everybody'd be doing it.
A lot of people don't think it's going to work out. If you want to fill yourself, you got to forget yourself. A lot of people have a really tough time helping others, not sure if they're going to get anything back. That's where faith comes in. You must believe in something that sometimes you can't see. And that's what people struggle with. I don't see it. I don't see that person coming through for me. Why should I go out of my way and do that? That's the only way you can build relationships. The only way you can really be a problem solver is by putting yourself in someone else's shoes and really doing more for them than most likely they could do for you and not keeping score. People do lack a lot of self-confidence. They don't think that they're deserving. They don't think that they ever can be at the top of the ladder. They can't visualize it. Maybe something that happened to them early on, they were disappointed. It could have been a couple classes they failed in fifth grade. Self-confidence is such an important element to install with your kids when you're parenting and with your employees in an early stage. Finding what they're doing right, applauding things that they're doing well, instead of just finding the things that they're missing and doing wrong, which is really a common occurrence. You got to lead with love. You got to lead with empathy. You got to lead with encouragement.
Talk about empathy. In fifth grade, you had a teacher that was so important, shaped you a lot, committed an act of kindness for you that really stood out. Would you share that?
Absolutely. In fifth grade, we were taking a test, PS 215. Mr. Kerper was my fifth grade teacher, called me up to the front room, gave me an envelope full of money and said, we took a collection for you to buy some clothes. How do you know I need clothes? And what he talking about is, well, you've been wearing the same pants for 3 weeks in a row. I said, well, how do you know that? He goes, well, you got a rip in the right knee. So I went home crying, humiliated, told my mom this. Of course, she came up with some story like she always did, that we were waiting for the semester to end, or if your size, you were in between sizes, whatever. I went in my mother's room the next day, but it didn't add up to me. That was the first time at 10 years old where I realized that everything wasn't even. We weren't good, that we were poor. We didn't have money. And I said, Mom, you're never going to have to worry about me again. I'm going to go out and work. And if I have extra money, I'll give it to the family. And that's exactly what I did that Saturday, which is over 50 something years ago. And I've never looked back. I look choked up when I think about this because, imagine a 10-year-old walking into his mother's bedroom and saying, you don't have to worry about me anymore. Hmm. I've had kids at 10 years old, you get them down for breakfast and dressed by themselves. It's like, ba-boom. So at 10 years old, like I'm up and down Kings Highway, which is a long retail strip, until I found this job with Freddie the Fruit Man, delivering fruit and vegetables at 10. And I was never late. Matter of fact, I didn't want to lose any of the $1.50 an hour he was paying me. So I was always there 15 minutes early. You have to be accountable for yourself. You can't use your past and other things that have happened around you as an excuse of why you can't move forward. Listen, I'm not going to use the excuse that my dad left and we're poor. Instead of having anxiety, I'm going to take action. Action over anxiety. At some point, you need to be accountable and you need to take action for yourself and not use other circumstances to blame of why you can't move forward. I don't recommend that a 10-year-old have to take that kind of responsibility, but it was a tremendous step for that age to learn how to make money, learn how to get a job, learn how to handle your money. I was paying all the bills in my house. A big part of moving forward is gratitude, is being grateful. And it's never too late to look back at some of the people that have helped you along the way. I don't even know if I can even go back and thank all the people that have helped me along the way, that are still helping me along the way. It's the details that makes the difference in your relationships in business and in personal. And don't be afraid to talk about them and bringing them up. I wrote a letter to Mel Kerper when I sold my company in 2000. Brooklyn Dodger fans, I sent him some Brooklyn Dodger stuff, but I wrote him this long handwritten letter. It was deep. It was long. It was detailed. It's on my BrandonSteiner.com on one of my blogs. When he passed, his nephew called me and said, I know I don't know you, but I looked you up. Mel had this letter that you wrote framed, hanging in his room when he passed away in assisted living. So it must have meant something. It's nice when you take a step back to show gratitude and appreciation because nobody does it alone. I don't care how good you are, how special you think you are. It takes a lot of people to really get you to an extraordinary level. And you got to be open to that. Don't be afraid to receive it, but also don't be afraid to thank people and be able to pay it forward.
With gratitude, details matter. I'm already on my third page of notes here, and I've only asked you 3 questions. We love to talk about sports and the influence of sports and helping people kind of grow as leaders. Tell me about sports as a young man.
I have a tremendous competitive spirit. I'm hardwired. When you're hardwired, it's hard to unwire yourself. It's the blessing and the curse. My mantra is always beat yesterday, get better. What's next? Just get a little better. I didn't have a lot of gifts. I was a little bit of an awkward kid. I was never a great athlete. I'm not one of these got into the sports business because I blew out my arm. My highest level of athleticism was when certain kids in the neighborhood didn't show up and they were able to choose me in.
Mm.
I was what I was, but I love sports. And I was so competitive that my mother would not let me go to the local high school that had normal grades. She sent me to a non-aggressive, non-competitive high school that was pass fail. That was very academic. She says, you need to go to this school. I know where you're going to be. You're going to be like a Rudy. Try to make the football, basketball team. I've now watched you play a little bit. This is a better direction. You need to get academic. You need to start learning how to learn. So much emphasis on grades as opposed to learning how to learn. That's the key. Once you learn how to learn, the importance of learning, that's the stuff you never want to lose because it correlates with curiosity. And, I was just thinking about this the other day with Mariano, one of the great closers of all time, great guy.
The best.
I remember I was in spring training. I was supposed to be Mariano there after the game. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the 6th inning, he comes and sits down next to me. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm in spring training. I'm sitting with Mariano. Back then, I'm like, wow, this is unbelievable. I'm watching the game with Mariano. So I turn to him. I go, what are you doing? I thought we were meeting after the game. He goes, I asked Joe to put me in early so we can leave early. Yeah, it's just a spring training game. He goes, what are you talking about? What spring training game? That was 1, 2, 3. I had 9 pitches. I knocked those 3 guys out. That's it. I go, well, yeah, but it's spring training. I pitch the same way today in spring training as I would in Game 7 of the World Series. The same way I pitch against a game that's a blowout, a close game, I never change. There is no such thing as a big game, a big inning. Once I go on the mound, that's it. A switch goes on, and I'm at World Series, highest level, doing the best I possibly can. When you get into these Game 7s, I have no pressure. I'm just doing the same thing that I've been doing all season from spring training on. I'm not changing anything.
Right.
Consistency over time equals credibility. Anybody can be great on any given day. I've seen more players have had one great season or a great month or a great game. But when I hear people say, oh, I've got a big meeting. Oh, there's a big call. Well, what are you saying about all the other calls? If that's a big game, what are you saying about all the other games where there's 50,000, millions of people watching? Consistency over time equals credibility. You walk in my office, whether you have A $50 sale, a $5 million sale, I'm in the same level of intensity. If this was 60 minutes, your pod, whatever it is, I'm not having to adjust one iota. Oh, there's just a pod. Oh, this, no. That consistency is certainly a very important characteristic if you're interested in being extraordinary. And what's great about the word extraordinary is extra. Don't kid yourself. We're all ordinary. The question is, do you want the extra, the extraordinary, which means you got to do the extra things consistently over time to be great. When you look at the great ones, all about the basics, the fundamentals, they were masterful of it, and we're looking to do the extra. And if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. I'm always ready for the greatest, most amazing possible thing that can happen. Whether it's going to happen or not, some of that has to do with God, some of that has to do with my faith, a little bit of luck, and continuing to work hard. We can't control everything, but I don't want to be in a position where something great happens and I'm not ready. I've never been afraid to go the extra, whether no matter how much of an inconvenience it is or what have you.
I love it. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. It's always been one of my favorite sayings. One of the quotes you had is when people tell me they're pressed and stressed, I tell them that that's great. That means you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. If you're not saying what happens if, then you're not in the process of growth. Tell me how you encourage those who work in your organization to feel pressure is a privilege, to quote Billie Jean King.
It's difficult these days. This is a very interesting environment we're in. And that mantra that I do believe in is not as easily transferable for younger ones. Although some of the younger people that are working for me, they are able to do a lot of things a lot quicker and faster than I ever could. So I have to alter a little bit of that thinking. I used to be in a 365 sprint of, hey, good, you're under pressure, good. You're feeling a little stressed, good. Because nothing great happens unless you're stressed. Anything great, anybody listening that's happened is because you had a deadline, something really pushed you out of your comfort, and you really had to step forward to do some stuff that you'd never done before. Now I realize that you can't play that out week in, week out, month in, month out. And a lot of employers do, and then you just end up losing your people. Pick your spots as a leader when you want to press that button to put stress, put pressure on the organization, put stress and pressure on people. Listen, we're the only species in the world that can adjust and deal with pressure. You're not going to wake up, you go fishing over in the corner of the fish tank, reading a book. Come down, your dog had walked itself, fed itself. So we have to realize that we're the only species, not a bear, not a cat, not a dog. No other species on this planet, there are thousands of them, can adjust and adapt. We can. We're built for speed. We're built to get better. We're built to do more. We're built to fix problems. We're built to deal with pressure. If no other reason, the fact that you're lucky enough to be in the human race, deal with the pressure and absorb it. If you're thinking that one day life is going to be easy, then this isn't the life that you really bargained for, because as soon as you get through the difficult time, there'll be another difficult time waiting for you. The question is can you adapt to dealing with difficulty? Because life is not going to throw you any straight little layups or straight fastballs down the middle. Be good at absorbing in difficulty so it doesn't throw you off, doesn't make you crazy.
You have a book in which the subtitle is the greatest subtitle I think I've ever read: How a Kid from Brooklyn Started from Scratch, Bought Yankee Stadium, and Created a Sports Empire. The second half of your subtitle, Purchasing the Old Yankee Stadium to Sell Its Parts. Walk us through how you literally turn dirt into dollars.
So I'd reached a hill to get the industry bigger. I wasn't able to climb any higher. We were a hobby. I was trying to get this collectible thing to be big. I thought the Yankees would be the biggest thing. I worked like 2 years to get a complete industry changing deal with the Yankees, great brand. And we did Yankee Steiner at the time. After a year and a half of negotiating, lawyers, there's a lot of things were involved. The last thing I turned to Lon Trost and Randy Levine. I said, by the way, if you ever move into a new stadium, you need to sell off that stadium. This was like one of the greatest stadiums of all time, maybe ever on the planet. So many amazing things. Because, well, we can't put that in the contract now. It's too late, but you got our word. And sure enough, 4 years later, they called me up to the office and go, listen, I know we promised you that. Look at the new stadium. Let's talk about selling off the old one, which wasn't easy because the city owned the stadium, but the Yankees owned a lot of the assets. Yankee fans are a special breed.
That is the understatement of the entire conversation.
Yes. I got to make sure that every Yankee fan on the planet can have something. So I sold more grass. I mean, legally. Millions of dollars of bricks. I sold the black out in the outfield with Reggie Jackson. Obviously, thousands of seats, the clubhouse, the lockers, the bulbs, the speakers around the stadium with Bob Shepard. I mean, we took it all down. Quite an undertaking. It wasn't a huge moneymaker for us, but it was something I'm really proud of that I did. And as a Yankee fan myself, I felt like I owed it to every other fellow Yankee fan to make sure that they had something in their possession to remember all the greatness that's walked from Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Whitey Ford, Yogi Berra, Mickey Mantle, Derek Jeter, so many of them. What's amazing is all of them grab a little dirt.
Right.
When I went on the field at Yankee Stadium, I found myself grabbing a little dirt. It's like this good luck charm, like a rabbit's foot. I don't know. I was a little crazy. I was like, man, I want to sell $100 million of dirt. And I realized I had dirt for all the ballparks. What's crazy is that the dirt, the viscosity, the color, all that was unique. So I made a cool poster. I had my graphic designer do a poster with all the pictures of all the ballparks. I said, put a capsule of dirt. And I wrote a little note to Brian Cashman. Brian, thanks for everything you've done for me. You've always been in my corner. I appreciate it. I had my graphic designer make this poster for you. Now you have a little dirt on every team in your office. I sold millions and millions, probably over $50-60 million of dirt from the different fields.
Wow.
Reaching a goal comes from a lot of hard work, tenacity, being competitive. Yeah. But gratitude sometimes is what gets you to the extraordinary. A thank you letter to Brian Cashman. Just wanted to show him a little appreciation, do something special for him. And gratitude comes into play. And I find the thing that helps you get to my goal.
What you are at your core is a marketing genius. The industry standard was go take a few lockers out, go take a few seats out and sell those. That's what you do when you're tearing the stadium down. You went out and pulled up the grass and scooped the dirt. Talk to me about developing that marketing mind of constantly looking for that thing that's outside of what others say is the way to try to grow your business.
The truth of the matter is, it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks, except for the people that love and care about you, that you trust. Then it should matter what they think. But listening to other people depends. Like, I walk my warehouse multiple times a week, multiple times a day, and some of my best ideas came from some guy packing boxes. You saw me in front of my store. You'd see me visiting my customers. You've got to be somebody who's really curious on the highest level. I'm not the smartest guy you're going to talk to on this pod ever. No way, anywhere near. I don't know if you find somebody more curious and somebody who's more interested in listening to a bunch of other people as their view. And the other thing is, I never hang out with people that are doing what I'm doing. I hang out with lawyers. I hang out with doctors, investment bankers, plumbers, electricians. I mean, all this business stuff is somewhat the same, but you get these different views from different industries, professions. Is how you get all these grains of sand that equal the beach.
It's funny. We had Dan Cathy, the chairman of Chick-fil-A, on.
Wow.
He talked about the exact same thing, that the real key is don't go surround yourself with everybody. Some of his greatest work was what he learned from Ritz-Carlton, hanging out with Horst Schulze to try to learn, how do I become better in customer service?
Hold on. What's crazy is when I got out of school, my dream job is Hyatt Hotels, which I had to go all the way to Baltimore. They thought the hotel was going to fail. They bring Horst Schulze in, who is corporate food and beverage director at Hyatt. And he's teaching the staff how to be creative, how to take things further, not to stop. This is us. This is us. That was his favorite line, Schulze. Brilliant guy, genius guy. You don't really know, if you don't have your eyes open, your ears open, all the people you can meet. Imagine, as a 22-year-old, I'm meeting a Horst Schulze because somehow I got into the executive team in managing the employee cafeteria. Again, you got to feel like you're deserving. You got to put yourself in positions, if not me, then who?
Right.
If not me, then who? That's what I live for every day, is that wow factor. And that was a Horst Schulze thing. Where's the wow? You can't get to extraordinary unless you have the basics covered. And his big thing is like, look, people think just by putting out a good product, communicating correctly, and being a good person, that should get you to extraordinary. No, that doesn't get you to extraordinary. That gets you to good. Nobody is loyal and is dying to do business with you just because you're good. You got to be extraordinary because people love you. You got to do the extra stuff. You got to do the things that really are impactful to people, that are remarkable, rememberable. That's Horst Schulze. Be remarkable. Be rememberable. If you're serving eggs, bacon, and whatever, all right, fine. But what's the extraordinary part to that? What's the remarkable part to that? I always think of DoubleTree hotels, a simple, basic hotel, but you get those 2 warm cookies when you walk in.
Give me that chocolate chip, baby.
And you tell everybody, oh, I got my 2 cookies. And that's Horace Schulze's things. Like, what differentiates you? What are you doing that separates you, that's remarkable, replicable, and that people can talk about you? Having learned that at an early age, and also being a hard rock guy, which I learned the same thing from Isaac Tigret, is you don't have to do a lot, but the little you do, be remarkable, be different, be amazing. Where's the wow? What I've done in my speeches and my books is how you get to wow. How do you get in the mindset? The biggest compliment from me is when somebody calls me and says, we were talking about you last night. What a great compliment. I'm not even with you, and you're talking to a friend about this guy, Brandon Steiner, and blah, 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 blah. Now, think about how many brands you talk about when you're not even involved in the brand. That's how much you're connected to and love the brand. It's not that many. People talked about Steiner. People talk about Brandon Steiner because I made an impact, made a difference, and was unique to them. Maybe a little remarkable at times. That's all I really wanted as a kid. I just wanted to do something unique, different, make a mark, make an impact, be a little different. That's what I strive for. It takes a tremendous amount of energy and effort, and you got to not be worried about whether it's going to work out for you or not. Is it really worth it to give those 2 cookies? I don't know. But meanwhile, they give out 75,000 of them a day. 40-something% of the people tweet or post or talk about it. So I guess it's worth it. You don't know if that's going to be that, but you just do these things because they're cool and they make sense.
This is bringing milk to the lady that won't subscribe to your newspaper. That little thing that will make you remarkable to her and will allow her to open doors for you to do other things.
Can you imagine all the women in the neighborhood? They all got together and said, oh, I got this cute kid who'll pick up some coffee, pick up some milk, pick up some. I was delivering more bagels and milk than I were newspapers at one point. It comes from what? Common sense. It comes from having empathy, really putting yourself in the other person's shoes and trying to feel what they're feeling. And not just being able to settle for the basics and the fundamentals of what you're doing. Just because you do a good job doesn't make you extraordinary. It just makes you good and basically pretty forgettable.
I keep coming back to that really great conversation your mom had with you. The what else can you do for them conversation. What a great road that she paid for you there.
What a gift.
We have a sign on our refrigerator at our house that I make my kids read every once in a while. The 10 things that don't require talent. I saw you talk about your rules for your kids. There's great leadership lessons in those.
I think parents overthink it. How do you increase and build self-esteem with your kids? That's your real main job as a parent. Build your kids up so they're worthy and weatherproof to go into a really difficult, grinding world that we live in. Get them ready for those difficult things. Don't protect them and hover over them. I have 3 rules with my kids, and it was simple. Be a good person, be a good brother, sister, or son, daughter, and do well in school. You don't have to be the best in school. Just do your best. That's all. Don't come home with a report card. Well, come on and say, this is the best I could do. As long as you're a good brother, sister, son, daughter, great. And be a good friend, be a good person, because it matters. Simple. If I caught up with what you're wearing, whether your room is clean or not, you don't want to eat your vegetables, go ahead. It's your life. You don't want to eat your vegetables, go ahead, don't. You don't want to eat right now, don't. You want to wear red? My son wore red for 2 straight years. Red sweatpants, turtleneck, socks, everything. Go ahead. We'll go buy you more red stuff. I'm not going to argue with you. It's all good. I'm behind you. Be a good person. Be a good brother, sister, son, daughter. Do the best you can in school.
Everything else will work its way out.
Pick your spots.
Exactly. And that is one of the challenges in parenting. Too often we're picking the wrong spots. Outside of being a marketing genius, you also are a master negotiator. There's something about your ability to draw yourself into really good deals. Negotiating is such a unique skill, but I'm going to guess that by the time you're done with an answer, I'm going to feel like it's a little simpler than it is because you seem to be able to simplify things.
I just can't believe how simple it is. But I just did a negotiation course that I'm launching in a couple of weeks on my BrandonSteiner.com platform. I think people are going to really enjoy it. First of all, everything's negotiable. Try to figure out what the other person really wants to get out of this, or what the other person needs, and see if that's at all doable. Because if I get you your bottom line, I get you happy, you're going to let your hair down a little bit. And you're going to be, okay, let me get you covered. I'd rather get you covered first. And then I'll figure out how I'm going to get mine second. It's been said many, many times, you got to be in a win-win situation. Most people try to negotiate. They want to win. Don't over negotiate. It's okay to go for the money grab, but where people get greedy is not that they're asking for too much or too little. It's when they get into these small things that they really don't need, but you're just asking just to get more. When you've got your main things covered, sometimes you just need to shut up and move on. You got what you need. Because remember, the goal in negotiating is not only to have a win-win, but you want to be able to go back to the person. I've seen so many negotiations go wrong where you won, but you can't go back. And I've seen a lot of ball players where their agents have taken every dollar off the table. And I try to tell my players, like, let's not take every dollar off the table because we are going to want to come back. And I don't want this person to feel like we beat them up. Know what winning is, and also know that everything's negotiable. Everything. Listen, I've lost plenty of negotiations. It's not all win-win. You're not going 100-0. But remember, if you go 51-49, you're a winner.
That's right.
It's an important element. There's so much to negotiating. There's a book, Negotiate Anything by Herb Cohen, good friend of Larry King. It's got to be 50 years old. Still stands tall. I love negotiating. It's not fearful for me. It's not anything that I feel uncomfortable doing. Everybody has a different approach to negotiating, but everybody has the ability to become a good negotiator and to negotiate great.
Everything is negotiable. I love it. The word, I think, team is overused in this day and age corporately. We talk about, well, me and my team. The truth is, most organizations aren't really teams as you and I know them. They're really a bunch of independent contractors who just happen to have the same business card. If you're coaching a young leader who's trying to build their collection of individuals into a team, what are some of the things you would coach them to do to kind of build that bridge from individuals to teams?
Well, there is nothing good that happens in a collaborative setting until you transfer information and find out different things about each other. You can't ever get anything really important. You can't get into anything controversial or disruptive with each other until you know each other. A lot of people bypass that. So I'm in your office and I'm pressing you to give me some stuff and I don't even know you. I don't know your dog's name. I don't even know you're married. I don't know you had a family member die 3 weeks ago. Like, if you don't really know what's going on with the people around you and getting to know them, doesn't put you in a position to get help and to really get authentic cooperation. Listen, if you want to create a group, make sure you get the time where people can spend together to get to know each other without having to ask anything from each other. And that's where a lot of teams miss. They don't have the time to really set up, to really get to know one another and to make sure you're pushing those buttons so that I understand where you're coming from. I understand how to approach you. I also understand what you're going through, where you've been. Now you're in a position to press each other or to support each other. All those things are a lot easier to do.
Many of the organizations we talk to today going through this entire hybrid work world, what you're referring to right here is that ability to have time together with people. How are you engaging that in this new world?
With great difficulty, like everyone else. It's confusing. People don't really know what they want. I think there are days they'd like to be home and there are days they wish they weren't home. As a leader, keep your head on a swivel, probably do a little bit of both, but you got to get face to face with your people at some point. Having people work 100% remote is a dangerous proposition. It could work in some environments, but you got to make sure that you can get some face-to-face time and some personal time with your people. It's just different. It's different than looking into a camera or talking on the phone.
It is.
But yeah, as a leader right now, you got to create fun. You got to do more one-on-ones. Big recommendation with my leadership classes. I know you got the Zoom, you got 50 people on, but you don't know what 48 people are doing. Do the one-on-ones. I know they take a lot more time, but you can't afford not to. You can't afford not to spend personal time to see where somebody's at. Start right from the top. Start with your most important people and make sure you schedule it for every couple of weeks. You got 15 minutes to 30 minutes to say, hey, what's going on with you? How you doing? As a family, what's happening? Because a lot of things can happen when you see people in an office by the water cooler in the bathroom, and if you don't see them for weeks upon weeks, you have no idea where they are, what they're going through, and where they've been. And leadership means sometimes doing the things that aren't that comfortable, that aren't that easy. And most important with leadership, it's about adding value. And value is what you can do for someone they can't do for themselves. Giving people that work with you and for you one-on-one attention and time is priceless. It's really important in this day and age. A lot of companies struggle to do that. It's not that complicated, but it's not always easy when you're getting pressure from above to hit a number. Always try to bring in not only stuff that's going to help us with the business, but things that can help them in an overall life perspective, things that they have no idea about. That kind of gets people feeling like, oh, all right, yeah, I didn't know that. People want to get better. That's something they don't know how to do it. So as a leader, you want to bring how to get better to them.
Right. We're going to put your books and your TED Talk in the show notes, but I want everybody to know how they can best connect with you. Where should we tell people to go to get a little bit more of you?
You go on Facebook and like my Facebook page, or I'm a big LinkedIn guy. I answer all my LinkedIn messages. I try to post more of my important strategy stuff or articles and stuff on LinkedIn. Great platform to network and communicate with. And then if you go to Collectible Exchange or cxstuff.com, that's where you can buy and sell. That's my new company that I've completely disrupted. I'm going after eBay.
I love it.
I have 150,000 things on this site and people buying, selling, and I'm guiding them about how to sell their stuff, what their stuff's worth. And I found a problem out there. People have a lot of stuff. They don't know what to do with it. And this is not, 1-800-JUNK. And people have stuff that's worth a lot of money. They don't know what to do with it. And I'm helping them. I'm having fun with it because I love collectibles. And I'm still getting companies, players to help them grow their business, market, PR, put in advertisements or speak at your company. I've been doing that since 1987 and still love doing that. So I'm just doing the stuff I love. You got to have some fun while you're doing it.
I love it. Brandon Steiner, love the wisdom. I love what you do. Been a fan for a long, long time.
Thank you.
And love to be able to reconnect over Walter Payton there. That's so great. Thanks for being a corporate competitor with us today.
Thank you. I really love having the time with you. Appreciate it. Keep in touch, man.
What a great conversation. I've always been a big fan and loved all that we learned today. But boy, 3 major takeaways for me. The first, consistency over time equals credibility. How true is that? If we know what we're getting from someone day in and day out, and if we can be that person who can deliver day in and day out, people will see us more credibly than they do others. If you're inconsistent, if you're one day you're one way, one day you're the next, it absolutely is reflected in the way others see you. I loved the conversation about the 5th grade teacher and the fact that the letter of gratitude that he wrote him years later was still on the wall when the teacher passed away. What a powerful reminder it is that we owe so much to those who have done things for us in the past, and our ability to reach back, say thank you, can be game-changing, can be life-changing in some way. Obviously, that letter was, or it wouldn't have hung on that wall. Now, I like to ask you to take this as a challenge from today's conversation. I'd like you to think about how you might reach back, write a letter to someone who has been impactful to you in your life, in your career. When you do me a favor and send me a note afterward. I'd love to know, social media, wherever it is, how you went about doing it. And if there is any follow-up to that, the opportunity to share gratitude. I know what it means to me and in my life. I'd love to hear it as it relates to you. And finally, I love what Brandon learned from Horst Schulze, one of the most fascinating people on the planet to me. And a couple of our recent guests, including Dan Cathy from Chick-fil-A, talked about Horst and how he taught Brandon the entire idea about be remarkable, be different, be amazing. If you're going to do something, you don't have to do something huge. You just have to do whatever you do remarkably. That's our goal today if we want to leave and be greater corporate competitors. This is Don Yeager, and I appreciate you. If you could share one habit, one thing you've done consistently that allowed you to separate yourself from your competitors, what would it be? In my 30-year career, 2,500 of the greatest athletes, coaches, and leaders answered that question for me.
This is Don Yeager, who did that that article I was telling you about.
Don, Dave Sims with Coach K. How you doing?
Hey, Don. How you doing, my man? Great, sir. How
What they gave to me is what I'm giving to you in my online course, Journey to Greatness. Through engaging storytelling and on-demand videos, you will learn the 16 habits that will jumpstart your personal growth. I will instruct you on how to apply these winning characteristics to your life through custom workbook exercises. We are slashing the price for our podcast listeners. Lifetime access to Journey to Greatness is normally $399, but for our podcast listeners, it will be $49 with the code podcast at checkout. Click the banner on corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to enroll. Thanks for listening to the show. I would be so grateful if you left us a rating and a review. We will be rolling out a new episode every Wednesday. To be the first to listen, subscribe to the podcast on our website, corporatecompetitorpodcast.com. Plus, as a thank you gift, you will receive a free chapter from one of my best-selling books on the habits of high-performing teams. Stay in touch by connecting with me on social media at Don Yeager, Yaeger, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until next week, I appreciate you.